We're going to be talking about where you can find court opinions, both federal and state. And then we're going to go into whether or not there are citators online that you can use, and whether there are other citator options on the web. All right. Next, we're going to move into executive resources, so largely presidential documents and regulations. Then we're going to wrap up by where you can find kind of journal articles and other secondary resources. And if I haven't touched on things that you're interested in, tips that you can use to find resources that maybe speak to a specific area of the law, or a resource that I haven't discussed. All right, so that's kind of where we're going. So I hope I don't lose you here. I do want to put in a plug for the Law Library of Congress. We are the largest law library in the world, and we are open to the public. So please feel free to give us a call. My number is on that first page. It's also on the last page. We have over 2.84 million volumes, either on-site or in our off-site stacks. And we have about 267 both existing nations, nations that don't exist anymore, and jurisdictions. So we have very wide coverage. The reason I tell you all of this is because we have a lot of foreign legal resources. That's something that a lot of people don't know. They assume that because we're in DC and we're the Law Library of Congress, we only have US resources. We actually have a global legal research center, and it's staffed by foreign law experts. And they deal with areas of the world and can help you find those foreign legal resources. I like to give people kind of a list of things we're generally asked, countries and areas we're generally asked about. This is not an exhaustive list. So if you're dealing with a country you have no idea where to begin, or it's in another language and you have no idea where to begin with that either, please feel free to give us a call. Again, 707-5080 is our telephone number, and we can direct you to one of our foreign legal specialists. All right, using our website. Our general website is law.gov, and in law.gov we have several resources that I think are really helpful for those starting out with their research. First is the Guide to Law Online. Then we have Current Legal Topics and Global Legal Monitor, which have a more international bent. Congress.gov is our legislative information service, and don't worry, I'm going to get to that in a second. And then I have to put a plug in for our blog. I write for our blog. It's In Custodia Legis. And I'm going to talk about that in a second too. But we have been branching into legal research guides on In Custodia Legis, specifically for the US, but we also have foreign ones as well. So feel free to start there and do a search and see if you find anything. All right. So this is what law.gov will look like if you type that into your browser. I want to scroll down just a little bit on the page and kind of highlight where all of these resources are. So you have on that the side there our hours, our location, and our phone number. You can either dial 707-5080 or 707-5079, sorry. Both of those will get you to the law library. If you are calling if you want to call after hours, you have an issue after hours, or you have an issue that you think might, take half an hour or more to research, feel free to use our Ask a Librarian service. You'll fill out your information on an online form, and then we'll actually email you back with assistance. So we will get back to you within 5 days. If it's a really difficult assignment, like foreign legal research, we might get back to you within 5 days, have some follow-up questions, and then start a dialogue from there. Okay. The other resources we're going to be largely talking about are the Guides in Law Online, Legal Topics, Global Legal Monitor, and then In Custodia Legis. So that's how you get to all of these resources. The Guide to Law Online is pretty much an annotated compilation of legal links. So, and it's broken down by jurisdiction. So you're going to have, all the states are going to have their own site. US Federal is going to have its own resource page. And then you're going to have nations of the world. So you're going to have your foreign resources as well. Just a note on the nations of the world, they might not be in English. We try and put the links for whatever the most official websites are. So if you know, you're dealing with France, it might be in French. Sorry. But you can always give us a call if that's a problem. So this is what the landing page for the Guide to Law Online looks like. One thing I want to note that's very new, in fact, within the last month, is we've added the Indigenous Law portal. So if you're doing any research of American Indian legal research, that might be where you want to start. It has the constitutions and laws of different American Indian tribes listed there, where we can find them online. But if you are interested in, let's say, U.S. states and territories, we get that question a lot. If you click on the link there, you're going to be brought to an alphabetical list of states and territories. Territories, yes, we do have Puerto Rico listed on there as well, and the Virgin Islands. So if you were to click any of these, so for instance, I'm going to do DC because that's where I am right now. This is generally what the page is going to look like. It's going to be broken up by the constitution of that state or territory, executive, judicial, legislative, which you can see here, an example of that. But also what I think is really interesting is we do legal guides and general sources. So if you're starting your legal research in a state, you don't know where to begin, we have a lot of links to the law schools and courts of that area that have legal guides on how to do research in DC. All right. So check there. That has a lot of resources. Here's an example of some of those legal guides. So for instance, in DC, we have a lot of law schools in DC. So we have links to all those law schools, their libraries, their catalogs, and then also their legal research guides. Okay. Next, I'm going to talk about legal topics and Global Legal Monitor. They're pretty linked on our website because they both deal with international issues to some point. Legal Topics is really focused on international issues, whereas Global Legal Monitor can have issues from the U.S. Folded in. The big difference between Legal Topics and Global Legal Monitor, we like to liken it to Legal Topics is more like a law review article. It's very in-depth. It might not be as cutting edge, but we try to keep it as cutting edge as possible. The importance there is the thoroughness of the research. Whereas Global Legal Monitor, we want it to be as cutting edge as possible. So it's more like a newspaper article or a magazine article. But we always provide links to our sources from both of these resources. And let me show you what it looks like. So here's the Legal Topics front page. You can see it's broken down by topic. When you open any of those topics, it's going to also give you the countries that are involved. If you click on a country, it's going to bring up an article about that legal topic in that country. You'll note here we use EndNote links. If you were to click any of those EndNote links, it's going to take you to the bottom of the screen, and it's going to give you a full citation and, if possible, a link to where you can find that document online for free. If you were to go to the Global Legal Monitor, this is what a sample article in the Global Legal Monitor would look like. You can see it's definitely a little shorter, but it's something that's happening right now. We do the links within the document, so you don't have to click those endnotes. But one thing I want to note particularly here is at the end of every article, it's going to give you information about the author who wrote the article, and it's going to give you links to other articles that deal with that same issue, legal issue, and other articles that deal with that specific jurisdiction. So if you're interested in either of those two things, click that link. It'll bring you to all the other materials we have on the website about that issue or that jurisdiction. All right, now I'm going to talk about the blog. It's a little self-interested, but I think our blog is a great place to start. We've done a lot of research guides, as I mentioned before. We just put up a couple family law guides. We've done immigration. We've done all sorts of areas of the law that people have found really helpful. It's going to give you what links we can to what's available online. And in addition to that, it's going to give you lists of materials that you can find in your local law library on the topic. So it's a good place to start. We also have just some fun articles about legal history and other things that are happening at the law library. If you're particularly interested in Congress.gov, our legislative information resource, which I'm just about to talk about, we post all the updates in custodial legis. So we let you know on that blog what's going on with Congress.gov and how it's been updated. All right, we're through my plugging of the law library. If you have any questions about the law library, please feel free to give me a call or come talk to me after the presentation. Just to give you an idea of what the resources are going to look like from here on out, what I've tried to do, and you'll see in your notes, I've tried to give you kind of an overview of where to find each resource, the website, and then kind of its content. And then I'm going to go into how to do sample searches on these websites. So if you have any question about how to find these websites, it's always going to be on that first slide. Okay? So let's talk about bills and resolutions and legislative history. Congress.gov is a legislative information system done by the Law Library of Congress and in conjunction with GPO. We have bill summaries for all the bills and resolutions introduced in Congress from 1973 to the present. We also have the bill text both in text and PDF form from 1993 to the present. Recently, and within the last year, we've added Congressional Record pages, so actual PDF pages of the Congressional Record that you can print out. We've also added committee reports where they have been made available. We'd love to say it was 100%, but sometimes the committees don't always give us the reports, so we've done about the most complete you can with what the committees have released. And that's about the mid-90s to the present. If you're interested in contacting your senator or senator or representative, knowing more about them, we have member pages going from 1973 to the present. We also have a glossary that people find really helpful for the terms that we don't even use as lawyers as much, but they use in the legislative process. All right, so this is what your page is going to look like in Congress.gov. One thing that's been added literally in the last week or two is we have a login button now, so you can sign in, create an account that's free, and save your searches, and save some bills as well. So we've gotten a lot of questions about, I've done this search, I want to be alerted if something happens in the future. The alerts are not yet here, but you can save your search and then redo your search when you come back to Congress.gov and not have to type it in every time. So if you want to do a legislative search, all you have to do is use the pull-down menu on the middle of the page and select either current legislation or all legislation. Current is only going to search the current Congress. All legislation is going to search all legislation from 1973 to the present. If any of you have dealt with THOMAS before, which was our old system, this is a lot easier for people because you don't have to choose the Congress first and then do your search. You can just do a search and limit on the next page. Okay? So you can then enter the bill number or the short title or any keywords there. Click the search button and you'll get a results page that looks like this. Notice on the left-hand side of the page are going to be our facets or limiters. They're going to limit your search. Typically it's by Congress. A lot of people also like to use the sponsor, co-sponsor information, and you can also limit by how far that bill has gotten in the Congress. So if you only want bills that became law, you can actually specify that here. Okay? If you want to look at a bill, you see this bill here, and it's the bill that you want to do more research on. All you have to do is click the bill number, and you'll be brought to the bill summary and status page. Every bill summary and status page is going to look like this. It's going to have a little tracker bar you see there that's going to let you know how far that bill got in Congress at a glance. This one became law. It's also going to give you any information we have about committee reports, if we have any. and who the sponsors and co-sponsors are, just at a glance. If you go down below the overview box, you'll see that there are tabs there. This is another difference from Thomas. You don't have to keep clicking to a page and coming back. It all opens on this one page. The summary tab that you see there is going to have summaries created by CRS, the Congressional Research Service. People find that pretty helpful, especially for our bigger bills. If you click the text tab, which I've noted here, you can get a copy of each version of the bill as it moved through Congress. So people have found that really helpful. If we move over to the Actions tab, which is the next one over, I always suggest when people look at the Actions tab, do all actions including amendments, because then you're going to get every single thing that happened to that bill as it moved through Congress. Another thing that's really great about the Actions tab is there are links to voting information from 1989 to the present and Congressional Record pages. So it's actually going to take you to the Congressional Record page on which that action is printed, which is really helpful. Another thing that's also listed on this Actions tab is committee reports. It's also listed on the Committees tab as well. You can actually click the link and be taken to a PDF copy of that committee report. People find that really helpful. If we don't have the committee report itself, we'll have the citation to the committee report so that you can then use that to do your research elsewhere. We also give you information about the activities and when they occurred, so that if you want to do legislative history research, you can use the committee information to then go and do that research. We don't yet have hearings on Congress.gov, so you can use the information from this table. As you can see there is an entry for a hearing to then look it up typically at your library. All right. The next resource we're going to discuss, FDsys, also has hearings as well. So, another way to get to committee reports, well, a couple other ways to get to committee reports. There's a committee reports link on each page under the Congress.gov heading. You can also use the pull-down menu next to the search bar and select committee reports from there and do a keyword search. You can also choose which committee you're interested in and see all the bills and resolutions dealt with by that committee, if you'd like to do that. If you're interested in just the Congressional Record, you can do a keyword search by that search bar at the top page. Just select Congressional Record from the drop-down menu. If you're interested in a date and you just want to go through that date, you can use the Find an Issue of the Record, which I've boxed there. The most current version of the Congressional Record is always going to show up on that Congressional Record page. So if you just want to go through, for instance, the Daily Digest just to see a summary of what's happened, you can do that here as well. All right. Another really helpful resource is the Federal Digital System that's done by GPO. Or the Government Printing Office, I should say. It has a wealth of information. It really does. If you're looking for government resources, this is the place to go, unless you're doing legislation, which then come to Congress.gov. But anything else, FDsys is what you want to deal with. And I've given you information there about what they cover. Again, congressional hearings are not on Congress.gov, so if you're looking for those, FDsys would be the place to come. Another thing I want to note real quick before I move on, if you're interested in public laws, FDsys is also a great place to go from 1951 to the present. They have all the statutes at large just digitized on there. All right, this is what the home page of FDsys looks like. Note that on the right-hand side of the page, there's going to be a listing of the most popular resources. Most of the resources you're going to be looking for, legislative resources, are going to be on that list. If you don't see what you're looking for on that list, you can just hit the Browse All link, which is at the end of the list, and it'll take you to a full listing of everything they have on the website. One thing I also want to note here is that if you look at the search bar in the middle of the page, there's a link to an advanced search. I'm going to show you how to use that advanced search in a moment. If you have to do a keyword search, use the advanced search, because otherwise you're going to get thousands of documents returned. It's like doing a Google search almost. You get just so many results. But don't worry, I'm going to show you how to use it. It's not the most user-friendly thing in the world, but we'll get through it. If instead you want to browse through a specific resource, this is generally what the resource pages are going to look like. They're organized by typically Congress or date, and then by type of document, and then document number. So if you already have a citation, this is a really fast way to do your browse or your search. But if you need to do a keyword search, this is what the advanced search looks like if you hit that advanced search link. You want to select the source you want to search from this list. You're going to hit the Add button to move it over to the Selected Collections box, and then you're going to do your search. If you're dealing with something like the US Code or the Code of Federal Regulations, they're going to have copies from about the mid-90s to the present. So if you want the most recent version of either of those, you're going to want to also specify the date that you're looking for as well. So you can do date is between January 1st, 2013 to December 31st, January 2013. Just giving you those options because I know some people do these searches and they get overwhelmed by the amount of stuff that's returned. But what you do get is a PDF copy of the paper resource. So you're going to get something that is a copy of the official document. All right. One more governmental website that's great is the House Office of Law Revision Council website. If you've ever been taken here before, I would suggest you go back because they've just redone it, and it's probably the most user-friendly website. It's amazing that you can use for the U.S. Code. That is, it has several ways you can get to what you're looking for. It has a keyword search. It has a title browse, so you can actually go through each title of the code and then section. It also has a popular name table that links you both to the public law and to the U.S. Code section. And it has a jump to feature. So if you know which section of the code you're looking for, you can type the title and the section in. It'll take you right there. Oh, and the reason you might want to go here over other free websites is the House Office of Law Revision Council is the organization that actually produces the official version of the U.S. Code. So this is probably the most up-to-date and the most thorough U.S. Code website that you don't have to pay for. So this is what the home page looks like. Again, here you can search by keyword. You won't have the problem you do with FDsys because what it's going to automatically give you is the most current version of the code. And then you can actually, on the results page, select from there whether you want a different version of the code. They have 1994 to the present. The jump to box is where you can put your title and your section to go right to the section you're interested in. The popular name tool is on the side there. If you have the public law number and you want to know where that is in the code, other tables and tools is going to give you a table that links the two. And then finally, you can browse the US Code. So if you know generally what section you're looking for, but you want to see what else is around it, this is a good way to do your search. This is what the popular name tool looks like. You can see they give you links to both the US Code and the public law that gave rise to that section. If you were to open up a specific section of the US Code, this is what it would look like. I want to note here, this is another addition that they've made that is amazing. It's really helpful. They link you to the source credit information, so information about the public law that gave rise to this bill and all the amendments made to the bill, or to the section of the code over time. It also has an amendments section. So if this section of the code has been amended, it gives you the year it was amended and what exactly they did in that amendment, which they didn't have before and is really helpful if you're trying to trace through what's happened to a section of the code over time. All right, if you're doing more historical research, if you're doing U.S. historical research, I suggest you use our Century of Lawmaking for a New Nation website. This is a library website. It has copies of the statutes at large and legislative history documents from 1774 to 1875. So if you're doing kind of colonial research and a little bit later, this would be a good place to start. If you are doing more international research, you might want to try, or even further back in history, you might want to try the Avalon Project that's done by Yale University, particularly their law library. I just want to note that a copy of the Magna Carta, the text of the Magna Carta, is available on the Avalon Project if you want to look it up before you go see the presentation. All right, I've gotten you through legislative resources. Now we're at case law. Is everyone still with me? I hope. Okay, I'm going to kind of start from what we found to be, at least in the law library, kind of most popular to least popular, and then I'm going to add some new ones on there as well. This is not a judgment on any of those websites. They're all great. But I wanted to get your attention first. So what I'm first going to talk about is Google Scholar. Probably you guys have used it before. I'm guessing you might have used it for law review articles or journal articles. It's actually really great for case law as well. It focuses mostly on case law rather than statutes. So if you're looking for statutes, I'm going to give you some more resources later on here. But it has a really large collection of case law resources, and it's also that easy to use Google interface, which a lot of people really like. So a couple other things that they have on there again are scholarly articles. Not all the articles that come back on Google Scholar are going to be freely available online, so don't be thrown off if yours isn't. A lot more law reviews are making their articles available for free online, but every once in a while you're going to run into something you might have to come to a library for, and if so, feel free to give us a call and we can help you find it in your area. Another thing that people like to use Google Scholar for is patents. They actually have PDF copies of some of the patent materials, so if you're doing a search in patents, also feel free to use Google Scholar. This is what the Google Scholar homepage looks like. It's very streamlined. If you're looking for cases, you just do the case law radio button there. You can select which courts you're searching. There's a select courts link there. So if you only want, for instance, the Fourth Circuit, you could hit select courts, then select Fourth Circuit, and only do the search in that circuit. So I'm a former employment attorney, so if you did a keyword search on hostile work environment, this is what your results page would look like. On the left-hand side of the page, there's going to be facets or limiters, so you can limit your search. This is particularly by, if you've done a search of the entire case law database, it's going to let you narrow down to which courts you're interested in. It's also going to let you narrow by time. So if you only want the most current cases, you can narrow that here as well. Google gives you two ways to kind of keep your searches or be alerted to new things that have happened about your topic. If you sign in with your Google account, you can activate the My Library feature, and that lets you save cases for retrieval at a later date. So you can kind of have a list of cases that are interesting to you and just click from there rather than having to do a search every time. There's also the Create Alerts feature, so you can actually create an alert on your keyword or your subject, and it's going to let you know if any cases are added to the database. All right. If you click on any of these cases, this is generally what the cases are going to look like in Google Scholar. A great thing that Google Scholar does that not every free resource is going to do is give you page citation information. So yay, you can actually cite directly to a page. Also, if there's a case in the Google Scholar database that is cited in your case, it's going to give you a link to that case as well, which is really great if you're doing your research. You don't want to have to go to another website to find that case. You can just link right to it. Probably the greatest thing about Google Scholar is their How Cited feature. And you get to it just at the top of every screen. There's going to be a link to read the case and then a link to the How Cited feature. It's kind of Google's version of a citator. It's going to give you the other cases in the Google Scholar database. So if it's not in the Google Scholar database, it's not going to show up, that either cite your case or have been considered to be related to your case. And it gives you a little example of how these cases have dealt with your case. Now you're not going to get the, the stop sign or the flags, but it does give you kind of an idea of how cases generally have dealt with the case you're looking at. Okay, so a lot of people don't know about How Cited. Please feel free to use this in the future. That's why it's there, and it's really helpful for free legal research. All right, next is FindLaw. FindLaw's been around for a while, so you guys might have used it in the past. They revamped their website a little bit, so it looks a little different. The big thing here, it's also going to have federal cases. It's going to have state cases as well, and I've given you the dates for those. It's also going to give you the ability to search the U.S. Code, the Code of Federal Regulations, and the Federal Register from about the mid-90s to the present. It's also going to have some state statutes as well. So if you're doing some state law research, this might be a good place to start. Another big thing that FindLaw has that people have been interested in is the Supreme Court Center. The Supreme Court Center has a blog that talks about Supreme Court issues, and it also has some records and briefs from 1999 to 2007. Unfortunately, they stopped collecting records and briefs in 2007, but I'm going to give you some other resources for Supreme Court records and briefs as well. Just hold on with me till the end. All right, so this is what the Cases and Codes website is, and I've given you the link to the Cases and Codes website in particular because I think this is really going to get you the primary resources you're looking for. If you go to the general FindLaw website, that's also going to give you some options for secondary resources like articles by practitioners and other things that the FindLaw editors have put together. But the Cases and Codes website is generally going to deal with primary sources. You can search for summaries of legal opinions on this page. That's another thing that FindLaw has that people have found really helpful. Not for every case, but for a lot of cases, they do a little summary of what happened in that case. And you can search that here. If you scroll down, you can also get to the federal and state resources as well. If you were to, for instance, I chose the Ninth Circuit, I opened up the Ninth Circuit, you can search a lot of different ways on these pages. You can search by party name, you can search by a keyword, free text, and you can also search by docket number. So a lot of people have the docket number, but they're still having trouble finding the case. Try the docket number search on here. If you want to search by year rather than by keyword or docket number, you can also do that here as well. And it at a glance gives you kind of the coverage for either that circuit or that state court, which is also pretty helpful. So if it shows that it has cases through 1995, but you're looking for something from 94, you can know at a glance this isn't the website for you. And this is what any case is going to look like. You'll see it's just text. There's not really a lot of additions here, but it's been around for a while, and in the very beginning, text was just great. People weren't expecting anything more. So you can also alter the font size. So if you're like me and getting to read little tiny text is getting hard for you, you can make it bigger on this page as well. All right, another website that's been around for a while and has helped a lot of people is Justia. It focuses both on federal and state cases. It also has similar coverage regarding the U.S. Code, Code of Federal Regulations, and Federal Register. A couple things that are interesting here. They have federal appellate and circuit court dockets and filings from 2004 to the present, which you don't find a lot of records and briefs for anything other than the Supreme Court for free online. So you might want to try that. Another thing that they have is GAO reports, which people have found interesting, the General Accounting Office. So, so you might want to check that out as well. This is what the home page is going to look like. You'll see they have just a general search that you can do, a keyword search at the top of the screen. They also break things down by topic, so legal topic, if you're interested in one specific area of the law, or if you're interested in a specific court or a specific resource, you can choose that here as well. But if you were to do a general keyword search, this is what your page would look like. I just want to note here, I did just a general search, and the results on this general search brought back a huge amount of different types of resources. For instance, it had a GAO report, a federal appellate court opinion, a state court opinion. So it gives you a lot of interesting information all at once in that keyword search. This is what a typical case opinion page would look like. This is a case that has that summary at the top, so if you want to at a glance know what happened in the case, you can read the summary. For some court opinions, Justia actually has the PDF released by the court at the time. It's not going to be of the reporter page, but it is going to be what the court released when they released the opinion. And some people have found that really helpful. It's a lot cleaner to look at. And sometimes the citations are a little easier to track from there. So you might want to take a look at that if you're interested. All right, another website that people love to use is the Cornell Legal Information Institute. The only reason this isn't first is because people typically use this more for the US Code and the Code of Federal Regulations more than cases. But LII does have a lot of cases on there. It focuses mostly on federal cases, though. So if you're interested in state cases, you might want to go to one of those other two resources I just talked about. If you're starting your research in an area of the law, the WEX Legal Encyclopedia is incredibly helpful. It'll give you information about the definition for that topic, and it'll link you to other freely available resources online about that topic. So if you're starting your research, the WEX Legal Encyclopedia is the place to go. And you get to that through the LII homepage. This is what it's going to look like. You'll notice the legal resources, it's listed by resource down below. The LII also has a Supreme Court resource. It has the Supreme Court Bulletin. And the Supreme Court Bulletin has summaries of the cases that are being heard by the court. So if you want just a quick summary of what the Supreme Court's doing, that's also a good place to go. But if you were to do a keyword search here, this is what your search would look like. It does have filter options on the left-hand side, which is great because LII does have a lot of resources. You don't want to have to sort through them all. So if you're interested in particularly either Supreme Court cases or federal cases, you can select that here. You'll note they also have an option for WEX Legal Encyclopedia websites as well. If you do a search in that new search box there, I just want to let you know you're doing your search all over again. I've done this before, that's why I'm telling you. So it's not narrowing your current search, it's doing a whole new search. So you might want to add your keywords onto the end. Trust me, experience. This is what a Supreme Court opinion is going to look like. You have the option of a PDF copy of the syllabus, opinion, concurrences, and dissents. So if you're interested in that, you might want to click those links here. And then underneath, they're also going to have a text version of the entire opinion. All right, some other options. We have the Public Library of Law. It's created by the same organization that does FastCase, so if you've seen anything about it, that's probably why. They deal both with federal and state opinions. They have links to regulations and statutes, but they don't actually host those on their website. So it's more of a, oh, you're interested in Nevada law, here's a link to their websites. It's kind of like our Guide to Law Online in that way. So if you're interested, this is what the home page looks like. One thing I want to note about the Public Library of Law that's really great is that if you forget everything I've told you today and you go to the Public Library of Law website, you can actually use their own getting started resources to walk you through how to do a search and what the results mean, which is really helpful. That isn't actually available on a lot of these websites, so feel free to use that. But if you decide to do a search, now the search here is going to search everything they have. If you want to narrow by jurisdiction, you just hit the advanced options link there. But if you were to do a search of the entire website, this is what your results page would look like. I want to note that one interesting thing about the Public Library of Law is that they rank the relevancy and they give you a percentage. So for instance, I did the hostile work environment search, and the most relevant opinion that was returned is a 60%. So I might want to do my search elsewhere, unfortunately, but it's good to know. So at a glance, you know whether what you're looking at is incredibly relevant or not. If you were to click the link for any of these cases, you're going to be given kind of a sample of the case, and then you're going to be asked to sign in. Don't worry, that doesn't mean you're going to get charged. It's a free registration. So feel free to register for that if you want to use Public Library of Law. They might give you, are you really interested in fast case? You can just ignore it if you're not, but it is free. Another one that people have been using for a while is OpenJurist. OpenJurist deals largely with federal cases. It also has the U.S. Code and U.S. founding documents there as well. Like the Public Library of Law, it provides links to other official websites for other resources. So it might link you to state court websites if you're interested in state court opinions. This is what OpenJurist looks like. You'll notice that in the search box at the top of the page, you can decide to search for only opinions, only the U.S. Code, or only a legal practice area. Legal practice area is going to also have secondary resources on different legal topics. So that's helpful for the search. You can narrow your search a little bit on that front page. Always be sure to click the Browse OpenJurist link. The home page is a little confusing in terms of where to find everything, but if you click that Browse OpenJurist, it's going to take you to all the resources listed there. If you were to do a keyword search, this is what your search result is going to look like. I just want to note, OpenJurist gives you the option of narrowing by circuit or by whether you want the U.S. Code or not. I would suggest not actually using those facets. I know this whole way I've been like, use the facets, they're great, they're great. In this way, they haven't really tweaked those limiters. It actually is going to list every circuit, both that the case is in and also that are talked about in the case. So you're not really going to get the narrowing that you want. So just keep that in mind when you're doing a search on OpenJurist. All right, and now we've come to one of the new websites. I know I promised you new websites, and this is one of them. It's actually really, really interesting, and I'm going to talk about why in just a second. Casetext, now it is new, so it doesn't have the broad database that Google Scholar has, but it does cover generally federal cases. So if you want to do a state case that's not Delaware, you might want to try somewhere else. But something that Casetext offers that you don't see in other websites is annotations. Casetext has gotten legal scholars in the field and also just general users to provide annotations on different cases. So these annotations are going to give you a little bit of insight about the case. Typically, it'll also link you to other cases or other resources that either are talked about in the case or talk about the case or are linked by topic to the case, okay? Now you might worry, since any user can make an annotation, is this, you know, just going to kind of be the Wild West? Well, the way they've dealt with that is they've given each user a reputation score, and that reputation score is based on the amount of annotations they've made and how well other users have voted that annotation to be. So you can vote the annotation up or down as a user, and then that score is going to show up on the annotation itself. Okay? And let me show you what this looks like. So this is the case text homepage. It's literally just a search box and a link to more information about the website. So if you do a keyword search here, you can also do a citation search here as well. This is what your results page is going to look like. Now the way case text is laid out, generally what the case text website has created is going to be on the left-hand side, and what users have created is going to be on the right-hand side. So you'll see on the left-hand side are filters, so you can filter by whether it's a code or a court opinion. You can also limit by the jurisdiction on that left-hand side as well. On the right-hand side, you're going to see tags that were actually created by users. So users can tag cases with certain subject headings or names, and that's going to show up on the right-hand side, and it's going to give you the number of cases that have that tag applied to it. So if you're only interested in a certain topic area, you might look to see if there's a tag on that right-hand side, and you can limit to just those cases that have been tagged with that subject. I also want to note each entry is going to show you the tag that has been made, or tags that have been made on that case, and it's going to give you a little summary showing where your keyword shows up in the case. So if you were to click any one of these, this is what your case is going to look like when you bring it up. It's going to, on the left-hand side, it's going to let you navigate from a summary of the case to the text of the case to their feature called We Cite, which I'm going to talk about in just a second, and then to secondary sources that talk about either your case or the topic that your case deals with. All right. On the right-hand side, there's going to be a navigation bar, and it might be a little hard to see because it's light, but there's going to be, if there is an annotation made on the case or annotations, they're going to show up as a green text bubble, and it's going to show you where in the case it shows up. So that navigation bar is the entire case, and it's going to show you where the annotation has been made. If you, oh, and one thing I want to notice before I go further, you can save cases to your account. So it's like Google Scholar in the way that you can set up your own account and save cases so you don't have to keep searching for them. If you were to click on that little green text bubble, the annotation text bubble, it's going to highlight the area of the case that the person is annotating, give their annotation, give their name, give any tags that they've created also for that annotation, and give you their reputation score so you know whether or not you're interested in what they have to say. It's also going to let you vote on the quality of the annotation there as well. So this can be really helpful if you want to just go straight to the annotations, see what people have said about the case. Just hit the text bubble on the right-hand side and it'll take you right there. Another thing I want to note is, like Google Scholar, they also have the page citations on the left-hand side. So that makes it pretty easy if you want to cite to a specific section. All right, but if you keep scrolling down after the text of the case, you'll notice that there's a We Cite feature. We Cite is analogous to How Cited in Google Scholar. So it's going to give you a listing of other cases in the case text database. So, you know, it's a little limited by that, but it's going to give you cases in the case text database that have been found to be related to that, either that case or that issue. Okay. If the user that has highlighted this case as being related has given it a tag, that tag is going to show up. They can also tag it as being positive, negative, distinguishing, or overruling. So this is kind of veering more into the Shepard's and KeyCite way of doing things. But again, this is done by users. So you got to double check these things and make sure that you also think that it deals with it positively. It's a great place to start, though, to see cases that are related. Okay, so I've talked a lot about we cite and how cited. Is there a citator like Shepard's or KeyCite available for free online? Unfortunately, the answer is no. The best we have is the how cited or we cite, so Google Scholar or that case text website. They're not going to give you as much information about how the cases have dealt with the case that you're dealing with, but how cited is going to give you kind of that summary of the different cases and how they've dealt with it. We cite is going to allow people to tag it as positive, negative, or other. Okay. So it might be a good place to start, but if you want to actually use a citator like Shepard's or KeyCite or any of the others I've listed here, I wanted to give you kind of the low-cost option, because I know I wish there were a free citator too, I really do. You might want to try your public law library. I know not everyone wants to get in the car and drive somewhere. A lot of public law libraries are going to have either a telephone number or an Ask a Librarian kind of setup where you can type in a question, and they can let you know what they have and what they can send to you, what the options are for printing, whether there are researchers that you can employ to do that for you. You'd be surprised, the cost is not as bad as people think sometimes for that. So try your public law library and see what they can do for you. Also, check your Bar Association website. A lot of bar associations provide FastCase. And FastCase has the Bad Law Bot, which is kind of their version of Shepard's. So try your Bar Association website and see what they have, or give them a call if you don't see anything on the website. Also, CaseMaker, which is another resource, has something called the Cite Check. And for a flat fee of $10, they'll actually go through a document for you and Shepardize it for you. So you might want to try that if you've got a brief that's due in the next 2 days and you don't have time to go to the library. $10 is not that much for someone actually pouring through your work and letting you know if there's a problem. Again, I've given you the website for CaseMaker there. A note, feel free to use it, but when you do use it, make sure you Blue Book cited it. They don't do Allwood, so use Blue Book. Okay, records and briefs. Supreme Court is going to have the most freely available records and briefs online. The ABA has a great website with Supreme Court records and briefs, so you might want to try that first. It's ABA Preview. They have from 2003 to the present. SCOTUS blog has 2007 to the present, and then FindLaw has 1999 to 2007. So using FindLaw and SCOTUS blog together might work for you. Some low-cost options. For other courts, so for state courts mostly, check their website. A lot of state courts are providing records and briefs online for free, as well as opinions. So check the state court website and see what they have. If you don't see anything on the state court website, call the clerk of court. You'd be surprised how cheaply they will print off records and briefs for you. It's usually cents per page, and they'll mail it right to you. Also, if you're dealing with a federal case, try Pacer. Pacer's also really cheap. I know these are not free, but they're close. Pacer charges about 10 cents per page, and it has a limit of $3 per document. So even if you're downloading something that's 100 pages, you're only going to pay $3 for it. So try Pacer out. It's actually really helpful. Sometimes Pacer will also forgive costs, like if you've only spent 20 cents in a period, they won't even charge you for it. So try that. All right, I've done all the case law. I hope that's helped. Now I want to move you into executive resources. So we get a lot of questions about executive orders and proclamations. Also about regulations, if you have to do regulations research, I'm really sorry in advance. FDsys is a good place for the Federal Register and the Code of Federal Regulations, but I'm also going to give you another website that's good for regulations as well. If you're dealing with presidential documents, this is the website to use. There really isn't anything that compares to it. The American Presidency Project. It was started by the University of California at Santa Barbara, and it's amazing. It doesn't have 100% everything, not anything for free online usually does, but it's got a huge percentage of presidential documents, and it goes all the way back to 1789. So look at that, give it a whirl. I'm going to show you how to do a search on that page in just a second. You'd be surprised, they also have press releases on there as well. So if you know the president talked about something, but it's not, you know, a proclamation or an executive order, try the American Presidency Project. All right, so this is what the homepage looks like. I will give you, it's a little cluttered, but if you want to go directly to a type of document like an executive order, you can do that by hitting the Documents button here. Or if you scroll down, you can do a keyword search as well. So you've got a couple options here. You can do a keyword search and then limit your keyword search by date or by type of document. You can use the select feature if you know the document number. So you know it's Executive Order 112. You can enter that here. You can also do browse. So if you know that a certain president dealt with an issue in this certain year, and it's probably an executive order, you can search by that here, and it's going to give you all the things created in a certain period of time that were a certain type of document. Okay. If you did a keyword search and you clicked on any, if you did a keyword search, this is what it would look like. It's going to give you the date that document was created or published, the actor, so typically the president that created it, and the type of document that it is. All right. If you clicked on any of these documents, it's going to give you information about the president right at the top of the screen, and it's going to give you information about the citation of that document and the title of the document right at a glance. And also usually a funny picture of the president at the top of the screen too, so that's always fun. And then it's going to give you the text of the document. They do not have PDFs at this point. For a lot of those older documents, it'd be really hard for them to get the PDFs, to be honest with you. Some of them are handwritten and have little drawn seals on them, so they're difficult to find. But it will give you the text of the document. So check that out. They also, if you're interested, I know this isn't technically a primary source, but they do a lot of stuff on election results and figuring out what they mean and doing that kind of research. So if you're interested in that, try that as well. All right, if you're dealing with regulations and you want kind of a more user-friendly search than FDsys, and you're dealing with a more modern regulation, so typically 2000 to the present, although this does go back further, you might want to try Regulations.gov. Regulations.gov, they're working on expanding the coverage. Right now, it technically goes to the late 1800s to the present. It's more complete for about 2000 to the present, so more modern regulations. But what's great about Regulations.gov, it's user-friendly, it looks great, and I'm going to show you it in a second. But it also allows you to make public comments directly from the website. So if you want to upload a public comment or type in a public comment, you can do that here. It also gives you documents related to that regulation. They're linked from the regulation page. So it gives you links to other regulations in the Regulations.gov database that are related, and it also gives you some documents, some regulatory type documents that are related to that regulation. And I'm going to show you what that looks like in just a second. So it's actually really great. They've been updating it a lot recently. And this is what it generally looks like. If you want to do a keyword search, you could do that right here from the front page. If you want to do a browse, so you know generally the FedReg citation, the CFR citation, you can do the browse feature. If you hit the Learn tab, The Learn tab is going to give you information about the regulations process. And so it's going to give you more information about what is this document I'm looking at and where does it go from here, which we get a lot of questions on. So don't feel bad if you don't know. We get that a lot. If you want to do a keyword search, there's 2 options here on the front page. You can either do it at the top or the middle of the screen. If you want more control over your search, which Regulations.gov does have a pretty big database, you can use that advanced search options to limit by date, and that might give you not as many return options. All right, so this is what a search is going to look like. You'll notice that you can limit by lots of different features, so whether the comment period is still open, what type of document it is it a proposed rule or a final rule or a notice? And then you can also search by date as well. Here's what a regulation looks like. You can make comments on that right-hand side. It also gives you citation information about the CFR, so where this would appear in the CFR if it was a final rule. You can also read other people's comments. So if the public comment period has been open for a while, there's a couple comments on there, you might want to read through that and see what other people have said. If there are any related documents, related regulations, or other types of regulatory documents, they're going to be linked here as well. Okay, so we've been through a lot of the primary resources. Here's the other new website that I wanted to tell you guys about. It's called Mudas, I think. If I'm mispronouncing that, I'm sorry to the web designers. It allows members of the website to ask legal questions. Usually they're kind of specific legal questions, and then it allows other users to give a response. The great thing about it is when you give a response, you actually have to cite a case, a regulation, or a statute. You can't just say, oh, well, this is what it is, so said I. You actually have to say, in this case, they said this is why it's related. You can look at the answers for free. If you want to ask a question, though, you get the first question free, and then after that, you're going to have to sign up for, they have a monthly program. So, but it's really good for those of you who are kind of new to an area of the law, a cutting edge area of the law, and you have a very specific kind of question. You can search for it here and see if it pops up. And the answers are great because they really do, they link you to the cases themselves so you can read them through. LexisWeb gives you secondary source material. So this is mostly articles written by law reviews and practitioners. Some of the stuff they link you to on LexisWeb is going to be on LexisNexis, so don't be scared off by that. There is still a lot of free stuff on there. So try a search, by type of document, by topic, or by keyword, and you might find an article that someone else has already written on the topic and get you started. Another similar resource to LexisWeb is hg.org. They have research guides that are kind of similar to like library research guides, and they have those articles by practitioners and law reviews linked here as well. You just do a search at the very top of the page, or you can do a browse further down on the page. Okay, so if I have not covered something that you're particularly interested in, that doesn't mean it doesn't exist on the web. It just means I'm trying not to keep you over time. So here are some suggestions for how you can do your own search. Feel free to use a search engine. I mean, we use it all the time at the library. It doesn't make you any less smart. We use a multitude of search engines, but people typically like to use Google, Bing, Yahoo, Ask. Feel free to use more than one. Some people use a meta search engine, so a search engine that searches other search engines for you and puts them all in one results page. And I've listed a couple for you there. I haven't given you the citation, but if you search any one of them, the site will pop up for you. Feel free to use the advanced search feature of these search engines. For instance, on Google, when we use Google, we use the the domain limiter a lot, so people are only interested in government resources sometimes. And then we can actually do a search with a keyword and then put cite and then .gov, and it'll only give back websites that have the .gov domain. So you could try that if you want only .gov, if you want only .org, if you're interested in stuff from 501c3 corporations and that kind of thing. So try that. If you're seeking case law or statutes, feel free to try the court website for the court you're dealing with, or the state websites for the states that you deal with. A lot of those have freely available things on their websites. You'd kind of be surprised. From the 2000s forward, you'll find a lot of stuff on there. Also, when you do the search in Google or Bing or Yahoo, you'll notice that there are a lot of subject-specific websites. One that we use a lot is the Intellectual Property Owners Association. They have a lot of IP resources on there. But this isn't the only option. You can look and see if there's an association website or a nonprofit organization that deals with your issue. And again, I have to plug our Guide to Law Online. That's a great place to start because we kind of cultivate those resources for you. And then In Custodia Legis, our blog, also has a lot of those resources collected in one place. Okay? All right, so I talked your ears off. If you have any questions, feel free to come up to me after the presentation, or you can call our reference desk. We're open 8:30 to 5, Monday through Saturday. We also have the Ask a Librarian page for those questions that can't wait till morning. So thank you so much, and let me know if you have any questions.